So I think we are about to start, and we have a very, at least to me, interesting session, and I'm pretty sure that you find the same. So first, thanks for Science and Business for organizing something like that. I mean the whole conference, and especially something dedicating to widening. Because that's the topic of the day, and more precisely, how can widening countries become a driver of European competitiveness, or if, we'll see. So I am Sorin Costre. I'm the president of UNICA. UNICA is the network of universities from the capitals of Europe, and that gives us a kind of specificity. We are talking about mostly of us old, comprehensive, and of course, located universities in the capitals. And we have some working groups, UNICA and the city, for instance, but of course we have groups working on education, research, and many other interesting topics. I'm here with the Secretary General, Professor Luciano Sasso from La Sapienza. I'm from University of Bucharest, a philosopher. And as a philosopher, I have so many questions. So, and today we have the pleasure to have with us, and I'm going for the alphabetic order, it's Nick Fowler, who is Chief Advisor Officer for Elsevier. Hi, Nick. It's Ladislav Krištoufek, who is Vice Rector for Research at Charles University in Prague. Hi, Ladislav. We have Eszter Lakos, and she is a member of European Parliament. And last but certainly not least, we have Aistė, Vilkanauskytė, advisor in the Ministry of Education, Science and Sport of Lithuania. Welcome all. And the structure of our panel will be the following. First, I will give the opportunity to each of them to present themselves, you know, if they would like to say more about what they are doing and to come with the ideas, and basically to address the main question we have, the one I have mentioned: can widening countries become a driver of European competitiveness? And afterwards, I prepare other questions. We'll go for them. The third section, I would like to be a kind of, crossfire, if you want to ask yourself questions. And if we'll have time, we'll get questions from you, which I would really like. But for this, we need to be well organized. And if you can, please come with short, answers. To give us more time to ask more questions. Thank you. So I think I'll start with Eszter, if you are okay. We are gentlemen. And can you, address this about the widening countries?
Yes, so thank you for the question. It's very actual because you know it very well that this Commission will be in the next 5 years as to the EU priorities, defense and competitiveness, and the competitiveness compass as a guidance or strategy was published last week, but we had the Draghi report, letter report before, so we are all aware of the importance of the subject. And then, of course, also for a long time, we know it that the main driver of productivity and growth, economic growth, is research and innovation. So we have these basics. And now, if I want to translate this in terms of widening, and I already said this at one of the events, is that I think that first of all, we have to think of not just the innovation gap between the US, China, and the EU, but also the internal innovation divide. So that is what we call widening in very simple terms, because only if there is economic convergence within the European Union, and I mean it also in terms of R&I, the continent is strong enough to compete globally. And it's also a matter of technological autonomy, because if we work together within the EU, we are less exposed to certain type of security risk in the future. So I think in terms of competitiveness, these are 2-3 main reasons for pitching for widening, also for the next framework program. And I don't know if you want me to stop here or I go.
In a sense, I will never stop you, and I'll never want to stop. But yes, for time being,
yes,
I think
so
it's
I will
good,
just
because
follow
we'll
that.
have many opportunities to
Yes,
discuss about things. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Still gentlemen, yes, we'll go for Aistė.
Okay, thank you. So, of course, I agree with Eszter, what she said, and I was also thinking that at this stage, it's crucially important how we frame the discussion about widening. I think we are not right when we ask whether or if widening countries can contribute to competitiveness of Europe. I think in this global race for leadership, and when Europe is aiming for global leadership, it's I think impossible for her to do it without using the whole potential of the whole Europe, and this means without engagement of all member states. And this is for the benefit of all member states. I mean engagement of the whole Europe in this race. And I think we should not even have any doubts that widening countries or all member states or whatever you call Eastern, Western, Central countries have some excellence at home. Yeah? For example, I picked up 2 examples for you. So one is Lithuanian laser and laser research and manufacturing field. So in this field, we are known for many years, for more than 60 years, as leading nation. And over 90% of Lithuanian products in lasers and optics are exported. And even more, 95 out of 100 top world universities are using Lithuanian lasers. So all top universities are using lasers for research that are produced in Lithuania. Or for example, when you speak about biotechnology, we are the 3rd nation of OECD according to the investment in biotechnology R&I. And we are very good at precision medicine. And I think that this example shows that it's really important that Europe uses its all potential, and it proves that widening is not a compromise for excellence, but widening helps to improve and to use and to exploit the whole excellence of Europe.
Thank you very much. I'll go for Ladislav.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I will probably continue with what was said, because I think there are many points, of course, but 2 main, at least from my perspective. I would say widening, if not the drivers, then certainly co-drivers, if anything. But what I think is important is that, and it was said during today and yesterday as well, is that we cannot do everything, and not everyone can do everything. So we shouldn't be extensive, we should be more intensive in the specific fields. And I find it hard to believe that there exists a country in the EU that wouldn't be, if not excellent or unique, then at least very good in at least something, right? But then, of course, there needs to be someone who figures that out. And we know that we are in the position, and it's not necessarily the EU, but it's a lot of member states. From my perspective in Czechia as well, the issue is that not everything, but, not everything is funded, but there is a limited amount of money. You need to distribute it, but the tendency is towards distributing it so that everyone is, if not unhappy, then at least somehow decently feeling well, and but not competitive. And that's an issue. There needs to be, and that's the problem always, there needs to be someone who says who leads what, where, and how to finance that. If there is no one willing to do that, then of course you need KPIs, you need metrics, you need indicators, because then you don't need to be the bad guy who decides who does what, because it's objective, right? And it's not easy to find even reasonable KPIs, right? This morning we heard that it would be great to finance the innovations only if we know that there will be a return to them and if it's efficient. That doesn't make sense, right? If it's innovation, you don't know. And that's the point. That's the point of riskiness. You don't know in advance what the return to that investment is. That's innovation. That's the risk. That's the uncertainty about that. I'm an economist, by the way. So that doesn't make much sense. And the other thing is, the second one I would like to mention, and why I think that widening certainly has the potential to be, if not drivers, then certainly co-drivers of all this, is that we often, and again, it's at the EU level, it's member states as well, we often start, if not at the end, then at least in the middle. We usually start with the instruments. So how to do this, what are the metrics, what are the measures to do? But we forget that we need the very basics, right? Asking about the environment, the research environment, the innovation environment, and what can be done at this very basic level, because then we are just dealing with the issues that arise from not having free labor market, not having the common capital market, and then all these issues come up from the fact that the very basics are not there. So the question certainly for me is, and everyone mentions Draghi's report over and over, fine. But what we keep forgetting is that the main message of Draghi's report is that we need more integration. Everyone forgets about that, or not forgets, don't want to mention that because that's politically sensitive, right? No one wants to say it out loud, and not even the F word, not the, I mean, federalization word, not the other one, right? But what Draghi's report points towards is that without further integration, it's very difficult to do anything about these issues. And that's, again, connected to the common markets, being it labor, being it the borders, right? Now we are getting to the situation when we are, again, discussing whether the border should be open or not. How do you want to build the environment for research when you're discussing open borders? How do you want to discuss innovations and risky capital if you don't have common capital markets? How do you want to discuss taxation if you don't have harmonized taxes, right? So we need to start at the beginning, not in the middle. It's difficult, it's politically sensitive, but starting in the middle, that's not an efficient way to go. So if we're talking about efficiency, let's start at the fundamentals. That's my view.
Thank you, Ladislav. So I left Nick to be the last in the first round on purpose, because he's going to present us some very interesting data, which may be the basis for some very applied analysis of what will come. So please, Nick, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to come out so I can actually see what I'm showing, and I apologize to my co-panelists for the crick neck that I'm going to give you as you sort of turn around to see what's on the slide. So I'm Nick. I'm quite interested to be in this discussion because I'm not from a widening country, and I'm not even from the EU anymore, despite my great sadness because I'm from the UK. I got Brexited. But it's a pleasure to be here talking about this topic. I come from Elsevier, and we provide data metrics, just as Ladislav was talking about. I hope I'm not one of the bad guys, but really this is just a handful of slides which aim to provide some data about widening countries to be food for thought, nothing more. As we take the discussion forward. So the first thing is the country. So this is a caveat. 14 of the 15 widening countries. It excludes Portugal because Portugal is somewhat of an outlier. We're really focused on Eastern and Central Europe. So this is, and it's a research angle. So this is the volume of articles published over a 5-year period from those 14 of the 15 countries. And what it shows you is that, guess what? There's not an even distribution. 2 of the 14 account for more articles than all the others combined. So, and those 2 are Poland, the Czech Republic, and then you can see also Greece is closely behind. So you have quite a long tail when we're talking about widening countries, relatively small output, which is a proxy for research capacity. Then if you look at a proxy measure of, and I stress proxy measure of quality, this is a measure called field-weighted citation impact, and it looks at the average number of citations per article for each country. 1 is the global average, and you can see the EU 27 is at 1.17, so that's the EU as a collective is 17% above the global average. And you can see there's quite an even split around this. And what I think is very interesting for this discussion is almost 2/3 of the widening countries are actually above the EU 27 in terms of quality. And so you have countries like Estonia, Malta, Cyprus, they're all higher than the UK, which is often cited as one of the world's sort of leading in terms of research quality. So emphasizing the point that some of the panelists have made, excellence is everywhere, and you can really see it through these country examples. A third analysis is international collaboration. So we're looking here at the percent of articles which have somebody co-authoring that article with the host country and another country. So on the left-hand side, you see Cyprus has one of the highest international collaboration rates. 67% of its articles are co-authored with somebody from outside of Cyprus. And again, you can see that almost all of the widening countries are above the EU 27 average, so they're collaborating more. Now, in some cases, that's not surprising, because in smaller countries like Cyprus, Estonia, Malta, you pretty much have to collaborate when you're doing scientific research. But the other reason this is interesting is because international collaboration drives quality. So the top 3 international collaborators here, Cyprus, Malta, Estonia, are the same top 3 in terms of quality of field-weighted citation impact. And then I think the last, we're getting towards the end, academic corporate collaboration is another big driver of quality. And here you see a different picture. So whereas international collaboration, most widening countries were above the EU 27 average, in this case, most are below. So interesting thing for us to explore, why is it that widening countries collaborate a lot less with industry than their EU 27 counterparts? Because that also, even more than international collaboration, drives quality. Scholarly outputs by patent. So this starts to get us into the area of commercialization. So this is the percent of articles that are patents that are cited by patents. So if I file a patent, I'm going to refer to academic research, and for the EU 27, 3.8% of research is cited by patents. And again, for every widening country showed here, the number is lower. So for some reason, widening countries are not getting noticed by industry. And the last slide, policy. So this is the percent of scholarly output that are cited in policy documents. So if you put a policy document together, like we were just hearing about some policy documents, the Draghi report, then it's an indication of impact, right, of real-world impact. And again, those top quality nations, Estonia, Malta, Cyprus, they're getting cited by policy documents as much as countries like the UK or France or Germany, more so in some cases. So 10.3 is right up there. It's a very high volume, high proportion of articles cited by policy. So I'll leave it there. I just wanted to make sure that we had some data. This is all from SciVal and Scopus analysis, which is used widely to inform policy. And we're not at the coffee break yet. I'll go all the way back to the start and put the photo slide back so you can see who we are. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Very nice charters, and we'll come later to them. What we can say now, and yes, it's a problem of denomination about these, widening countries. With very few exceptions, I will say that the widening countries belong, well, geographically, we are in a sense together, with some exceptions, but are the countries hit by communism. And that's something in terms of mentality. So for me, coming from Romania, is not a surprise that in terms of quality and international collaboration, most of us are above the average, but in terms of university-industry collaboration patterns and policy, we are behind because we don't have that mentality. And that mentality won't recover fastly. I saw Ladislav, knocking. It's not right. Excellent. Contradict me. Come with. So yes, and the question I have in mind. What is the real situation, and how can we make impact in our proximity? I mean, in the widening countries. Who would like to? I saw two both knocking people, Eszter or Ladislav.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think first would be not to say this, that we have this communist baggage. I think that's 35 years ago. No one cares anymore.
You're too young.
Maybe, but still, I think it's kind of a, well, how we've developed. What I mean by that, it's been already 35 years, right? So what we're missing, I think, is that we are missing this like upper middle age class of researchers that would be used to do research properly and in modern way. And it's quite difficult to retrain them. And well, that might sound too harsh maybe, but it's on average, of course. Not for everyone. What I mean by this is that there really is, we can see it at a lot of our institutions, that there is this gap of people between 55 and 65. So we are 35 years after that, right? So the people who were like already 40 when the 90s came, and they didn't really change or adjust to the change. And it really is taking these 35 years to somehow transform the way we think. And I think the newer generation, now the people who are in their PhDs now, they're already completely Western, the way they're thinking. They want to go abroad, they want to have their postdocs, they want to return back, they want to apply for international grants. Their supervisors, not so much maybe. Some of them yes, some of them no. And that this, I think, is the biggest issue. But it's getting better, or at least from my perspective it is. That this really has changed. And now researchers who are, I don't know, around 40, 45 already have this Western mind, and they really are open to this. And we can see successes already. It takes time, it will take some more time, but it has changed, and it's been changing. Now, it's the example I must say now, right? So in this last call for ERC consolidated grants, Czech Republic got 10, right? That's more than the rest of widening put together. Of course, it can be a chance, or like, not a chance, certainly, but it might be just one red dragon or black swan or whatever. Hopefully not. But what we see is that it can be done, and how this can be done, or how I think we did that. 5 of that was Charles University. Okay, so my university, that's more than Oxford, more than Cambridge, by the way. We do the statistics, you know. Yeah, the KPI. So I mean, if you do better than Cambridge and Oxford, you put it in your tweet, right, or something. So I remember this. But the thing is that it really takes time. It takes money and it's money that no one wants to give to you, right? Because you say, okay, let's give me this millions of euros. We will create the seed funding, and then in 5 years we will see whether these people apply for ERCs and they get better. And they will reapply. Maybe they will not get it, but in 5-10 years you will see the results. And it's very difficult. Like the structure, at least in Czech Republic, the university structure is really rigid. It's not easy to get money. We are really decentralized, so the faculties are strong. So it's quite difficult to get some centralized program to finance that. But we were able to do that, or the guy who did this before me. We continue in that, and now we see that really, if you pour the money the correct direction, you will see it in 5-10 years, but it is difficult. And now we see that people from abroad are coming for these programs. The people who did the Czechs who did their PhDs abroad, they come back for this because the money they get and the infrastructure they get is the same as in the West already, pretty much. Because what what good thing happened for widening certainly is that infrastructure-wise, we are already very advanced. Like a lot of money was poured from the EU for the infrastructure. Where it wasn't much was the people, right? So that's what's on us. We need to do this, right? So we have the infrastructure. We just need to, get the money and pay the people properly so they don't run away, that they circulate, and they go abroad, they come back. Someone not originally from Czechia comes here, goes there. It's circulation. But I think it can be done. It takes time, but it certainly can be done.
Okay, just two reflections. What you have said about the cultural shift, that I completely agree with both of you, that is still needed. And I follow also like PhD students, getting feedback from them, and this is really an issue. And the elder generation is not modernized enough, and then as a consequence, the PhD courses are not always modern enough to live up with the expectations and with the current needs. So cultural shift has to be done, and also maybe again it's a topic later on, but the trainings, administrative capacities, they have to be boosted. On the economic structure, I think it's very important still in post-communist countries, that we have privatized in the 90s the state assets, and then it's very telling, I think, what kind of economical structure, one country has, and we are not as R&I intensive, speaking in general, as, core of Europe. And this reflects very much, I think, when we negotiated the Single Basic Act, and it came up very nicely, how the EU 15, EU 13 then, made the moves because the usual split changed a little bit according to the industrial structure. I'm referring it like two member states, so it still has to be considered that we are not entirely there yet. And that's why I think the academia and industry collaboration is also lower, although that there are different schemes that they are pushing towards that, and it's an absolute need for the future. Coming back, to your question on how we could create more impact, to me, it's the essence is always that a collaboration in R&I. It's a condition sine qua non. Be it a traditional consortia, be it a partnership, and of course the cross-border links could be further strengthened as well within the widening countries, because you have said as well, like you excel really like globally and also EU-wide. So, why not to focus also in certain cases on each other, not just on those that they are, in our traditional way of thinking, they are innovation leaders or core Europe. And the other thing that I would like to mention is the importance of the ecosystems that, from the politics, policy side, we have to absolutely push for, I think, in the future. We need to have the champions and, those institutes that they are really triggering around the different actors, and not just the traditional triple helix, but really the local government there, and to try to really have the entire pipeline. So from be it like basic research to applied, and really help to the startups, and then to scale up, and then to have really the capital that is needed. The risk capital that I'm referring to, especially, and to get the training, the mentoring, the experience, because that's I think this is missing or should be improved. I liked very much what the Regional Innovation Scheme is doing within the EIT, and to try to have this place-based focus, to really see what is going on the ground, and try to exploit the best what is the economic reality of a certain region. At last, about the instruments, maybe some words, or we come back later on? Okay, so I will stop.
Thank you.
Okay, so I agree what was said, but maybe not with everything. I think that even when we look at statistics, you know, it's always the matter of interpretation, how you interpret the statistics and how deep you go into the statistics. Because I remember that some years ago in our ministry, we're looking at the issue of low collaboration rate between business and academia, because we were making a big effort in increasing it and improving it. And what we found was that, okay, we have not so much of business, like Eszter said, that are R&D intense. But those that are R&D intense, they collaborate between themselves, so academia and business, 2 or 3 times more than on Europe average. So we are a small country, we all know each other, and those that are doing research, that are interested in research, they are very well collaborative, you know, and working together. So you cannot say so simply, you know, without further analysis, that in our countries nobody is collaborating and nobody is knowing what to do. It's not true. And another thing, when we speak about usually those so-called widening countries, that I do not like this term, widening countries. I think this is the first thing we should change. So we always, you know, somehow go and make reforms. But what we are doing lately, 20 years, we are doing reforms at home. And for our researchers, it's always sometimes a nightmare when they hear about new reform that is coming, because they are always under reform. And we already also upgrade our infrastructure, try to make some framework conditions for researchers, increase their salaries. We even have political agreement to increase funding for research and to reach 1% of for governmental funding and research. We also have promoted this academia and business collaboration. Now we have a big program for accelerating participation in Horizon Europe. And we have a very big spectrum of different measures that we offer to our participants, so from business, from research, and it's information, it's strengthening NCP network, it's liaison office in Brussels. We even established the scientific officers network in all the ministries to improve our, you know, research-based policy making. And we also have different financial measures where we support our researchers with trainings, with co-funding. We have teaming projects, partnerships, support schemes. And we even transferred structural fund resources to Horizon Europe. So we are, by this, we are trying to close or to finalize this training gap, because by this, researchers can get, you know, more funding from Horizon and really to practice on site how to implement the project. And we already have, from these transferred resources, 3 EIC projects funded. Now 1 ERC project will be funded soon, and 4 ERA fellowships that were submitted like Marie Curie. So I think in the 1 year, it's quite a good and impressive result. And by the way, I think it was also a very good incentive for our researchers, because for the first time this year we also got, last year already, we got 2 ERC grants in one call. That never happened before, because in Horizon 2020 we had just 1 ERC grant. Now we have 5 already. So I think it's really improving, but I think that Europe, if it wants to stay competitive, and I think we all want that Europe stays competitive, it should also a little bit change in its mind in inclusiveness policy, in all this integration policy of all research potential.
Thank you. Nick, would you like to contribute to that?
The problem with going last is by the time it gets to me, I've forgotten what the question was. I've just been learning from all of this, and maybe we should take the next question.
Yeah, the question is in which way we can make impact in the environment, the scientific environment in the widening countries. So we are benefiting, the widening countries, and in which way we can make impact in our societies.
So, well, I guess one area that I do work on a lot pertains to what you may have heard, some of you may have heard Robert Jan Smits talk about this morning, the idea of a fourth generation university. So this is the idea that universities themselves can be, are engines of impact in regional ecosystems. And we've been working with a number of universities to develop this concept. And one of them actually is you're going to help me with the pronunciation, Brno, B-R-N-O, in the Czech Republic. So it's already happening. That universities are working, as you're stressing in Lithuania, already working closely with industry, already working with local government and with the public in a very specific area to maximize growth. And it's about making choices in those regions, focusing on what industry actually needs in that region, working with government to ensure you have the infrastructure such as housing to be able to house the new employees, and then having a broader impact on society. So I think that's one way in which impact can happen in widening countries. And it's called out, I think, through the excellence hubs, which is one of the instruments. I know we're not supposed to go there just yet. But developing excellent hubs, strengthening regional innovation systems by linking academia, industry, government, and civil society is exactly what the fourth generation university movement is trying to do. So that's my contribution. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. So when the widening program and Widera was launched, the European Commission said, and I quote, that this is for spreading excellence and strengthening the European research area, right? Well, the bad voices said and still say that that's lowering quality and slowing down the real research. We already contradict that. I mean, what Nick had presented, it's clear. What Eszter had said, it's more than clear. And what Ladislav and Aistė told us about the success stories in their countries, I think, definitely contradict this kind of perspective. I mean, to have 5 ERCs for one university at once, and overall 10, it's excellent. I mean, it's more than excellent, and it shows excellency. And now the question, is the widening a matter of compromising for excellence, or do you think it's rather an issue of strengthening the competitiveness of European research? And why? Who would like to break the ice? Eszter?
I can do it probably. I mean, it's a very political question, and it came up, of course, and it will be deal breaker again, I guess, during the negotiations of the next framework program. And I think I was quite clear at the beginning that it's a matter of competitiveness, European competitiveness, and that we have excellence everywhere, and then we have to basically widen the excellence base in Europe. It's not that we are widening excellence, the excellence base is widening because it's there. You have to link, the actors across Europe because they are missing these collaborative links, the networks very often. And of course that there are structural issues, of course, in these countries as well that we can address at member state level and also at European level. But we have as a means the framework program. So that's why we are focusing all the time, if the question of widening comes up with this dichotomy, so the structure and then the collaborative links. And of course, we have to go back when we will discuss again the next framework program. What do we expect from the widening measures? So shall there be structural, shall there be more collaborative, shall there be both, and what instruments should we keep or not? So looking forward to the midterm evaluation of Horizon Europe. And as Aistė, I don't like either, the name widening, because it's like really the ghetto-ish a bit. You are in this group, the category B, so we should find something better that expresses the concept in a less stigmatizing way. I heard this deepening, for instance, that could be a solution, but I don't know who has better proposals for that. And probably last but not least, I really don't believe that anybody in the council, and I think probably not in the parliament either, wants to compromise on excellence. I mean, we accepted that this principle goes across the framework program, and we live with this, and this is that brings actually, ahead us, and we have to find the ways how, to better integrate the widening actors within the consortia, the networks, etc. And what could be an option for the future, for me, is that we have to think of, of the mainstreaming across the framework program, while respecting, of course, the excellence principle.
Thank you. Aistė, Nick.
Okay, I will continue. Okay, so I can repeat once again that in our opinion, widening has never been and is not compromised to excellence. And I have one more thesis in my notes saying that these sectors that I highlighted in the beginning of my intervention, by surprise, they are not so visible in Horizon Europe, that we are all used, to treat like an indicator of excellence. So it's not always 100% true that the only indicator of excellence is participation in Horizon Europe. It's not. But I would like to put the question in this way. Would Europe benefit if these well-known sectors would participate in framework program? I think it would. So is it worth of effort for engaging them and not letting them go to United States? I think it is. But somehow we are not thinking about it in this way, because every one of us, usually when we are debating a framework program or any other program, we just think about the interests of our single country. And this is, I think, is the main problem, That's why we have all these discussions framed in the way that it's excellent, not excellent, first league, second league, and so on and so forth. And I think that's why, and even when we think now about forthcoming enlargement of EU, there will be new countries in EU coming. I think we already have some experience. We see that integration is not, coming so fast. It's not so easy for different countries to integrate. So we should think how to learn from our lessons and how to do it better in this way, when in this case, when new countries are coming. And we should be careful that we are not creating, 3 gears Europe or 4 gears or whatever, that we are all on the same, level. And I think that's why we really need some inclusiveness strategy that is focusing on Europe's unity, competitiveness, and security, like Eszter said from the very beginning, because it is not, I think Europe is not secure if it's not relying on the whole Europe in all the fields. And I think here where we should not only think how to identify the excellence that is present in all member states, what we are trying to prove here, and how to tap in it, but we also should think, like Eszter said, about the instruments. And of course, the question is whether we continue with this ghetto program with 3%, or we think about mainstreaming. I think we should think about mainstreaming, but again, we should have some shift, I think, in focus. It's not mainstreaming of teaming across the, for example, framework program, or it's not mainstreaming of twinning across the framework program. We should think about completely different approach, and I think it's something like, some measures that are really changing the approach of selecting projects, for example. So maybe, again, we should return to the discussion of higher geographical variety in consortia, so maybe a little bit expanding consortia and having different, not necessarily always widening countries, but different geographical variety, and this would encourage more countries to come to consortia. Another thing would be, I think, well, we all know that member states that are more experienced, they developed very big systems of management of projects. Some universities, they even have staff of 100 and more that are just helping their researchers to manage Horizon Europe project. And this happened not because those countries are very good in management, but because Horizon Europe and all framework programs, they now put much, sometimes even bigger emphasis and weight on management than on the idea itself. So we should make sure that we really select innovative ideas, good ideas, and do not see, do not judge the management so much at the beginning. I think it also correlates with the discussion that we had about DARPA and ARPA today in the morning. And another thing is that we cannot somehow continue with this, track record checking in the projects and seeing, okay, this coordinator has a lot of projects, so of course they are very reliable and they will do it well in this project. We should really somehow have some fresh, I think, newcomers in the program and everywhere, and this would, I think, benefit everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, Ladislav?
Yeah, I think that unless we accept the premise that talent and intellect is somehow unevenly distributed and that it's biased towards the old countries and there is more talent and intellect there than the widening countries, then this whole discussion is completely ridiculous, right? And if we accept that, actually, then it's completely offensive and doesn't make any sense. So I think also all this diluting excellence, that's actually kind of funny. Like, what is excellence? How can we say what is excellent? And we can actually see it that it changes quite a bit in ERC now, because now much less points or much less focus is put on the CVs, right? So now we actually need to read the project and evaluate them qualitatively. And it's way more difficult than if you just look at the CV. Because then if you forget about the CV, then finding the good projects, that's completely different story. So of course we have these proxies. If you look at the CV, for me as an economist, okay, if I see that someone had coffee with Daron Acemoglu, then probably, it's fine to give them ERC, why not? But that's probably not a good way to go. So I think it's very important to, be treated fairly, and that's the most important thing and most important way to go. Because I find it hard to believe that the talent and intellect would be so unevenly distributed. So that's one thing. And another, from economic perspective, I really think that if it's not the case, so the talent is there in the widening as well, which it is, then it's efficient to look for it, to find it, and to pay for it, because it's cheaper. It still is cheaper. So it's just the way of wanting to do it. It's difficult. Of course it's difficult. It's easier to check a CV and say, okay, Oxford here, postdoc, MIT, whatever, right? But that's not how to be treated properly. That's not how it works. That's not reality. So we can talk about excellence, and we can pretend that excellence is just looking at the CV, and then automatically the projects are better. But if we don't do that, then we see that if we put the playground, more square and fair, that's quite a different story. So I think the most important thing is to have this fair and square, and then we will see, I think the widening can do way better if it's treated properly.
Thank you. Just a couple of reflections. So first of all, just to reiterate what you said, when you look at the data, widening countries are excellent, right? Of the 14 I showed, 8 are above the EU 27 average, 6 are below it. So from a sort of fact-based point of view, there's excellence there, which supports very much, I think, what Ladislav was saying. The second thing, just an observation with my non-EU hat on. It feels very EU-centric, this discussion. It's all about, how do widening countries collaborate more with non-widening EU countries, when in fact the EU as a whole is now about 18% of the world's output, right? So there's the world out there, and it's just maybe we'll come onto it when we talk about instruments, but actually collaboration of widening countries with the US, with other of the research, it may be harder now, but with other of the rising nations. So lower middle income countries now generate more output than high income countries in the world. There's been a massively shifting global balance of power. So I guess it's just a bit of a provocation to say maybe we should look beyond the EU when we want to think about increasing the competitiveness of the EU. Maybe collaborating beyond the EU is actually the key to unlocking the EU's potential.
Thank you. Now, very quickly, we are going to my last question. And, Eszter, you talk about laser and how important it is in Lithuania. Well, you know that we have this ELI project, and it's located in 3 of widening, deepening countries. It's in Czech Republic, in Hungary, and in Romania. And there is a wonderful, magnific infrastructure. It's the most powerful lasers we have in various combinations. So, in a sense, we have infrastructure, we have good researchers, and Ladislav and also Aistė came with very good, successful examples. But maybe what I think, please contradict me, give me more contradictory examples. What we lack in our countries is a mentality how to gather research teams. So my question is about leadership in research. Do you think that that's something that we could and should improve in our country in order to be more and more competitive and to bring more and more quality? Because otherwise, I totally agree with you, Ladislav. Talent, it's more or less evenly distributed, right? The problem is what kind of social infrastructure you have in order to attract it and to support it, right? And that comes to my question about, this leadership mentality, how to gather, not just to be a good researcher, but to gather research team and to put a good project. I'm assessing now at ERC, and you are right. It's harder. It's easier to look at the CV and to say, yeah, that's good. But it's harder to assess the project per se. But it's better, because it will give better chances to our researcher. Thank you. So please, quick questions, because we are approaching the end, and maybe we'll have time to get some questions from the audience as well. Quick answer, sorry. I'm full of questions.
I feel I should pass it to the leaders in Europe. So.
Yeah. Well, who'd like to start? If you like to address it, I mean, it's not compulsory.
I'm not a practitioner, so I can tell you what politicians can do. So, again, it's coming through the training programs. I agree with you that cultural shift is needed. We discussed it. But then, in this case, you need trainings, leadership programs, because if you do not have the mentality, you have to learn it somehow. So you study it, or you just getting mobile, so you make either internships, or you spend XYZ time somewhere else in a research institute, and you try to get the practices and to change in mentality. It's a big shift if you go from the EU to the US, for example, and you harvest there the practices, and you come back, and it's the typical case of the cross-fertilization of mentalities. So I think you practice it, you have the mobility programs, the leadership programs, and different types of trainings. I think you also have to train those that they are around you to help you. So like the admin staff, for instance, for different projects to ease, you know, your life. And what I have seen is that, but it's rather more in innovation, that, you know, you always have to have the champions, and then those champions, they are bringing, you know, the others around. And this is a matter of mentality, and it has to start, I think, at early age, and as long as in Europe, you know, the career is, if you have a contract that never ends and you are in the public administration, then we don't go really further. So, I mean, you have to have also this more risk-prone, you know, in the future. So, more or less, I think these are the most important things. And we have already the different initiatives. I remember this, what was the name of the higher education initiative in the EIT, but I don't know how higher education initiative, yes. And then it's like, you know, boosting the entrepreneurial capacities